The sun had barely risen when the sound of hooves cut through the silence of the plains. Dust rose behind the lone rider, his shadow stretching long and thin across the gold-baked earth. His name was Eli Cross, a man known in 3 counties for collecting debts, land, and broken pride. He was not a killer by profession, though he'd killed enough men to know how easily a life could be taken and how cheaply it could be bought. His face bore no malice, only purpose, and today that purpose had a name: Samuel Hayes. Old Samuel had borrowed money years ago when his crops failed, and now, after 6 long seasons, the debt had ripened into a claim. Eli wasn't coming for gold, he was coming for land. The Hayes Ranch sat at the edge of the valley, framed by dying trees and weathered fences that spoke of hard times. When Eli dismounted, the wind carried the faint smell of smoke and sweat. The place was poor, but there was a kind of stubborn beauty in it, the sort that refused to die even when everything else did. He tied his horse to the post and knocked on the cabin door. It opened not to Samuel Hayes, but to a young woman, her hair dark as river mud, eyes wide with suspicion and something else he couldn't name. Her hands were rough from work, her dress faded and patched, but in that moment she looked like every bit of light this dying ranch had left. "My father's sick," she said, blocking the doorway. "Whatever business you've got can wait." Eli's jaw tightened. "It can't, I've come for the land." She stared, unflinching. "Then you'll have to talk to me." From inside came the sound of coughing, deep, rattling, the kind that speaks of years of dust and despair. Eli looked past her into the dim light of the cabin and saw the old man lying on a cot, skin pale and eyes barely open. "He can't work this land," Eli said quietly. "It belongs to the man who can." "And who decides that?" she asked. "The one with the paper or the one who bled for it?" He had no answer. The law was on his side, but her words cut deeper than he'd expected. Still, he pulled the folded document from his coat and held it up. "The debt's due. I'm sorry." She looked at the paper as if it were a death notice. Then slowly she stepped aside. "Come in," she whispered. "At least don't make him stand to lose it." Inside, the air was thick with the smell of medicine and dust. The girl, Clara Hayes, moved quietly, offering Eli water from a chipped cup. He didn't drink. His eyes kept drifting to the old man, who now stirred and spoke with a voice dry as gravel. "You're Eli Cross," Samuel said. "I knew your father. He'd be ashamed to see what you've become." Eli's jaw flexed, but he didn't respond. "The papers are clean," he said after a moment. "You had your chance." Samuel turned away, his breath weak. "Then take it. Take what's left of this cursed land. It'll die soon enough." Clara stood between them, trembling. "No," she said, her voice cracking. "He's given his life to this place. You can't just—" But Eli interrupted, tired and cold. "It's not my choice. The land is worth something." And he signed it away. For a long moment, silence ruled the room. The only sound was the wind pressing against the thin walls, like a ghost trying to get in. Then Clara took a step forward. Her eyes glistened, her lips barely moving as she whispered, "If I asked you to spare him, what would it cost?" Eli looked at her, confusion and something darker flickering across his face. "You don't know what you're saying." "I do," she said. "You came for something valuable, so take me instead. Just leave him as home." He froze. No one had ever offered themselves to him before. Not like this. Not out of desperation so raw it made his chest ache. "I don't take people," he said, voice low. "You take everything else," she shot back. The old man coughed again, weaker now, and Eli looked down at him, the man who once might have been a friend to his father. Somewhere deep inside, something began to shift. He turned to leave, muttering that he'd be back by sundown with the sheriff. But as he mounted his horse and looked back at the cabin, her words lingered in his mind like an echo carved into stone. Just spare him. He'd heard pleas. Before, every man who lost something begged, but never one that sounded like surrender wrapped in love. As the sun began to fall, Eli rode away. But the image of her standing in that doorway wouldn't leave him. He had come to take a piece of land, but somehow it was she who had taken something from him. Night came heavy and cold. Eli sat by his campfire under a sky of silent stars, his mind turning over the same thought again and again. Her voice, that desperate whisper, and the look in her eyes when she said it. He'd done this kind of work for years, always believing it was fair, business, not cruelty. But tonight it felt different. It felt wrong. He could almost hear his father's voice, rough and steady. A man's worth ain't in what he takes. Son, it's in what he leaves standing. At dawn, he rode back. The cabin was quiet, the chimney cold. He knocked, but no one answered. Pushing the door open, he found Clara asleep beside her father's bed, her head resting against the frame, one hand clutching his. Samuel Hayes was gone. The old man had passed sometime in the night, his face peaceful at last. Eli stood there for a long time, hat in hand, before whispering a quiet prayer he hadn't said in years. When Clara awoke, her eyes were red, her voice barely a breath. "He's gone," she said. "So there's nothing left to take." But Eli shook his head. "No, there's something left." He reached into his coat and pulled out the deed, the one that gave him claim to every inch of this land. Without another word, he threw it into the dying fire. The paper curled, blackened, and vanished into ash. Clara stared in disbelief. "Why?" she whispered. "Because he was right," Eli said softly. "This land's already been paid for. In sweat, in years, in love." She turned away, tears falling freely now. "Then what do you want from me?" He looked at her, the morning light catching her face, and said, "Nothing. Not a thing." But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. He wanted something he couldn't name, something she'd already given, without realizing it, redemption. As the day broke over the valley, Eli helped her bury her father under the old oak tree. Neither spoke much. When it was done, she looked at him and said, "You can stay for supper. It's not much, but—" Her voice trailed off. He smiled faintly. "I'd like that." And for the first time in years, Eli Cross felt the weight in his chest ease just a little. Sometimes the hardest men are broken not by bullets but by mercy. As he looked over the land, glowing gold in the sun, he thought of how close he'd come to destroying it and how a single whisper had saved them both. Just spare him. And if you felt that story in your heart, if you could see the dust, the pain, and the hope, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. Because somewhere out there, another tale like this waits to be told.